for someone listening who's never heard of LinkedIn, or they've never, like, they're very basic in terms of building a presence for themselves to find a job in their transition, what would your recommendations be to that person to start diving into this world, to begin networking and building that brand so they can find a job?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is just, building the profile. And again, if they just Googled how to build a LinkedIn profile, like you're gonna get there. And it's like any social media, like get a picture, right? I mean, even if it were right here, if I snapshotted this, like this is like do that, right? Like this is a good start. Um, and then the headline. So you do that, but you're like, okay, so just because I have a profile. So again, just what does a profile mean? Have it really be you though too. So that photo, like if I snap this, like this is me now, right today. Don't take a photo from, you don't want to see, 1984 Dan, right? Like 1984 Dan doesn't look like this. So people want to see that, right? Um, but once you have that though, now it's like, how are you engaging? What do you want to see in your feed? And then how do you now put yourself out there? So that's what I tell you. What I'm going to say is, like, I'm in my office. I look around at things that you believe in or you use daily. Right. Yeah. So I use iPhones. So let me file Apple, right? My MacBook, right? I use a MacBook. Let me file Apple. But you're like, okay, but I'm not a tech or nerdy guy, so I don't really want to follow that. You're like, but there's so many other things. Like, I look around my office. I run. So there's like any running brands, Nike, On, right? Whatever you want, Saucony, my archery stuff, my shooting stuff. Like, there's so much. So, and you follow those, and then even like a LinkedIn, then you start hitting connect with people because you're gonna find someone in that company again. If you're so because we are military, right? Which I'm not post military. Someone has probably been in the service. Um, I I usually accept everyone's request if I have some kind of connection with them, right? And or if I look at their profile and I see that they're active or did something. Um, it's really like and I'm not making fun of any countries. I mean, there's Pakistan, India, Afghanistan ones that you get, and you're like, okay, like China, like you're like you're fake. So you don't accept them. Um, and so you start making these, and then you'll start seeing stuff, and then you're gonna start seeing. So like it's like me. So say you started following me, and I'll talk about random stuff. Right? I'm not on there to promote, my business or anything. Now, again, if I'm working for a company, I might show my brand. Like, so when I was at Black Rifle, right, I showed a lot of coffee, but I talk about other things. So even now, like I'm doing videos talking about Chat GPT. I don't work for Chat GPT. I have zero in that, right? And I know there's a ton of either other AI sites, Jasper, Copy.ai, right? I know. So I'll throw them out there. I just happen to be using ChatGPT. So I'm throwing that out. So you might see my content and then again, it's that sea of information. And so now you engage. Well, I'm one that since I like that platform, I'm going to engage back with you. And that's where when I talk about brands, that's what brands need to be doing. And if you have a good social media manager, which, Black Rifle always did, is you could get a comment back. And dude, how cool is it that Black Rifle just sent something back to me, right? Again, I'm no one, but Dan Horgan just said something back to me, like, so and you get engagement and you like that. And so then you start seeing that, Instagram's the same way. I for like the longest time, probably never would comment on anything. I would either put some content out and if I didn't know the people, but now I do, I see the power of that. Whether it's a thumbs up or something, commenting on other brands and stuff that, I use and believe in. So you have that profile, you start getting into there, start making comments and connecting with people at that point. Now you have made that network, right? Um, and I don't know. I mean, I like, so I think you made that and I don't know. I guess it just sounds like I'm stumped because for me, like, it's so like, once that is boulder or that avalanche that's rolling, like it's rolling and it doesn't stop unless you just jump off the platform, right? You can be like, hey, I'm taking a break or I don't want to use it anymore. Bye. But at that point, you might have made actually like real friends in real life, right? Not just, via that. And you probably have their cell phone number or something.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree with what you're saying. I think for me, watching it happen when I was on LinkedIn, from making the profile, following different cybersecurity companies that I was interested finding kind of the people who were in the space that I wanted to be in, interacting with them, reaching out to veterans to get a better idea of the space.
Yep.
All of that happened on LinkedIn, and it was very, very powerful. And I think that all of your recommendations are so crucial to folks because these social media platforms really do allow you to expand your search scope, like globally, in terms of
Yeah.
figuring out what you want to do next with your life after you're getting out of the military. And if you play in the space and you take enough time, you can find a lot of valuable stuff out there
Well,
in
yeah.
that ocean of information that you're talking about.
And it's just even like you never use something even by itself. So again, if you're just using LinkedIn just to find a job, I would say you're doing it wrong. I mean, I would tell you even my job search, Indeed and LinkedIn are my two. Like I pair them up together, right? Um, and then even IG, right? So I like Instagram over Facebook. Obviously, I say obviously I like Instagram over Facebook, but if I'm looking at a company, right? My first thing is LinkedIn. They don't have a LinkedIn presence. You're like, okay, I can understand it. But then I'll go to Instagram. And if a company that I like, if I want to work for, and it's companies I'm looking for, they don't even have an Instagram. Now you're just like,
What are we doing?
yeah, like what are we doing? I mean, because yeah, it's crazy. But Indeed can be the same way. You can be on Indeed, and you're looking and you might see a company. You're like, I don't know that name, and so don't discredit because you don't know that company, right? People talk about that all the time. Like you have large, excuse me, like, hey, I want to work at Nike, or like, okay, there's Nike, but what about this new startup, tennis shoe brand, right? Great. You found it on Indeed. You've never heard of them. Go to LinkedIn, see if they have a LinkedIn account, right? Because I bet they probably, if they're a startup, I bet they do probably have a LinkedIn, right? Nowadays, about that funding. And then
Got to
same thing
make
with
that
their
money.
IG. If they're a startup, yeah. And so now you've never heard of that name. You want to apply for the job that you saw on Indeed, but now you're going to touch base with them on all these other channels.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
I I never when you go back to talk about like things that people didn't use in their transition, I never even looked at Indeed, which is really funny. So great advice. I should have listened to this podcast 2 years ago.